cumbersomely named Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, isn't exactly one of the most prestigious Xbox 360 launch titles. Not even the fact that it really is Peter Jackson's King Kong, for the legendary filmmaker actually acted as producer on the game, can elevate it beyond what it is. A B-tier game that's fine. Just fine. There is a beauty to that though, a phenomenon we've seen in games in the 20 years since Peter Jackson's King Kong first launched is a shrinking of that middle ground. It feels like today games are either smaller affairs or absolutely massive bets, and with that shift has come a loss of a certain category of game. I don't know what to call them exactly because all the terms are nonsense. B tier, that implies an inferior quality, which isn't what we're getting at all. Double A, that's a battery. Whatever they were called, quite a lot of these games were branded tie-ins, leveraging a licensed IP in order to try and maximise sales potential. Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, is something of a poster child for that sort of game. While these tie-in games existed on the previous generation, and this title was itself cross-generation, this was the first of its kind on the 360, there from launch. Directed by Michel Ancel, otherwise famous for Rayman and Beyond Good and Evil 2's development hell, this is no cheap money grab. Ubisoft clearly spent eagerly on it. It's also full of interesting choices, starting right at the top with the decision to allow players to experience the narrative and gameplay from both the perspective of the human characters and Kong himself. The human levels take place from a first-person perspective, while adventuring as Kong pushes back to third person. Many of the Kong levels turn this into more or less a secret kaiju game, with the titular beast doing battle against other gigantic creatures. Meanwhile, the human sections are most characterised by the game's filmic decisions to remove pretty much all the HUD elements. This might be the hand of Jackson, of course, as the result is certainly something that more closely resembles a movie. This is a game where you handle guns that by default eschews an on-screen ammo counter or even an aiming reticule, and there is something of a textural richness lent by that. The 360 version is paradoxically considered largely inferior to the last-gen version that released concurrently on Sony's outgoing PS2 console. While the so-called Gamers Edition that came out on the brand new next-gen Xbox enjoyed a crisp, retina-searing 720p presentation, it didn't have the last-gen version's sophisticated facial animation, and, to add insult to injury, it was completely broken on standard definition televisions, which millions of people were still happily using in 2005, where its image output was so dark as to be unplayable, thus kicking off the grand and long-running tradition of Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot having to apologise for massive technical cock-ups. So it's hardly a greatest of all time candidate, but it is memorable enough for its bold design choices and cinematic presentation as much as its development issues. It perhaps then is unsurprising that this has become a banner bearer for 360 era licensed tie-ins, even if it isn't quite the banner bearer. That honour will always and forever belong to the unassailable 50 Cent Blood in the Sand.
Mr. 50, what a surprise!
But that's a whole other video, which I'm not making. One major part of Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie's legacy, is how inexorably tied it is to one of the 360 generation's most defining features. It is the original Achievement Hunter's game. With a grand total of just 9 achievements, it's that rare title that hails from an era when the more esoteric side of the achievement system was yet to be fully established. If you wanted an easy 1000 gamer score, Peter Jackson was your man. People actually rented this from Blockbuster, remember that? To get that sweet, sweet gamer score. One of the sadder things that's happened in my relationship with the Xbox ecosystem is how I no longer care about achievements or gamer score, something which I carefully cultivated and maximised for many years. Part of that is just getting older, fatter, more boring, and having a young family who haven't got the time to sit around waiting for me to collect 900 flags when the dinner's going cold. Another part of it is about Xbox's crumbling market share and how, when I do boot my Xbox, I'm not seeing a packed friends list playing like we did in the past. In the good old days, all your mates were on there accruing gamer score, and even the most cynical of us would enjoy the pang of dopamine that occurred when Xbox Live's built-in gamer score tracker told you that you'd beaten one of your pals in the rankings that week, even if it was because they'd been on holiday to Magaluf and left their 360 at home. It's all tumbleweed now though, in an era when affinity for Xbox has cratered across the board. Over the years of the 360's lifespan, there were a lot of strong, easy 1000G games. There was that famous Avatar game, 5 minutes for a full gamer score in that one. I rented it from Netflix back when they used to send a disc to you in the post. Christ, my back hurts. I remember Need for Speed Most Wanted being straightforward. There was a standalone Forza Horizon crossover with Fast and Furious, which was free and coughed up full score easily. Fight Night Round 3 was a breeze too, but the thing is, of all these games, it's fair to say that this humble movie tie-in was one of the most interesting experiences you could have achievement hunting. In fact, it was one of the better launch games, although that might say more about the rest of the launch lineup. But whatever its grander legacy, it has left an indelible mark on my gamer score. Even if I'm no longer that fussed, I'll fondly remember my achievement chasing days, and this game is part of it. It might seem absurd nowadays because I'm not sure anyone has cared about their gamer score since 2013, thanks to Don Matrick. But it can't be overstated how much the achievement system was seen as one of the 360's game-changing innovations, and such an important perk of the platform that Valve and Sony developed their own achievement systems a few years later. It's a bittersweet reminder of a time when the Xbox platform was pushing the competition to up their game rather than playing catch-up and chasing trends. It would be wrong to say that Microsoft ever really led from the front in the console business. The 360 remains their best ever go at it, and even at its height, it merely jostled with Sony for second place, while Nintendo were so far ahead on the back of selling Wii Sports Bowling to nursing homes that they were completely out of sight. But for a brief moment, the ascent of the Xbox brand seemed unstoppable. Hitting its stride around the same time as the launch of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and sharing Iron Man's own superpower, infinite money, it was the place to be if you were a gamer. It had the momentum, the exciting exclusives, the cool frat boy attitude that it had somehow inherited from Sega at their Attitude Era best. They were such good times that even the billion-dollar PR nightmare that was the Red Ring of Death didn't and still hasn't dampened my love for that machine. But as we all know, it wasn't meant to last. You can't blame Xbox for chasing the new markets busted open by the Nintendo Wii. After all, Sony also made a desperate bid to capture some of that magic with their own motion controllers. But the launch of the Kinect, a fiddly technology-first solution that just didn't work anywhere near as well as it was supposed to, triggered a long decline in Xbox's public image as it struggled with its own identity as a brand. We saw glimpses of the Xbox glory days poking back through over the years. The confident launch of Game Pass and Sony's subsequent attempts to match it felt like the brand back at its disruptive best, or meddlesome worst, depending on your outlook. But it's fair to say that those early days of the 360, exemplified by innovative, experimental, and entirely daft games like Peter Jackson's King Kong: the official game of the movie, were Xbox's halcyon days. And God, do we miss them.